This question is again for all of the candidates. The number one issue concerning all Americans today, inflation. The annual inflation rate is 8.6%. Rising gas prices cause all other costs, such as food, to rise. New York also has high taxes, high housing costs, and unfriendly business regulations that increase prices at a greater rate than other states. What would each of you do as governor to help New Yorkers battle inflation? And Mr. Wilson, you're up first.
Sure. So it is a huge issue, and we've forgotten all the lessons of the last 40 years because of the bad Biden policies that have enabled this 40-year record inflation. So what we can do at the state level is offset it by reducing taxes and the cost of living. So when you go through all of my pieces, property tax cut, income tax cut, cost of living, those will put up to $5,000 a year into the pockets of middle-class families. It is a total game changer, and that is how we offset bad Biden policies here in New York, making New York much more affordable.
Okay, Mr. Astorino?
Well, I did this. In Westchester, as I mentioned, we held the line on spending, which meant we had to cut hundreds of millions of dollars out of the budget to stay at $1.8 billion for all 8 years. And that allowed us to cut property taxes. We worked with all of our businesses, big and small, so they could prosper in Westchester County. And that's something we have to do here in New York. And unfortunately, we go back to the Cuomo years and the Hochul years now. This train has been out of control for so long. And unfortunately, it was people in the state Senate, in New York, in Albany, like Lee Zeldin, who were voting for the Cuomo budgets the entire time that got us to this point. Unfortunately, that train was put on that track, and it was kept by the conductor, Lee Zeldin, and Andrew Cuomo. And that's where we are today, where we are. $40 billion additional in the last 2 years in our budgets in New York. And that means we have the highest taxes. I will cut taxes, including the estate tax for our farmers and small businesses, corporate taxes, income taxes, and yes, I already did it. I cut property taxes in Westchester, and we'll do that in New York.
All right, Congressman Zeldin, you're up next.
We have to bring down spending. We have to cut taxes across the board. One of the ways that we can help revitalize local economies, to create jobs, to generate revenue, we should reverse the state's ban on the safe extraction of natural gas. It's important for the southern tier. It's important for other counties that want it. We have pipeline applications right now in Albany that are collecting dust, being delayed, denied, that instead should be getting approved. Right now, we have one-party rule. Kathy Hochul is going to get fired November 8th. I'm looking forward to removing her from this office. One-party rule. They want to next ban all gas hookups on new construction statewide. I care about the future of the state. I am all in on this rescue mission to save our state. Unfortunately, what you just heard was untrue from Mr. Astorino. One, I never once voted for Cuomo's proposed budget. And secondly, when Mr. Astorino was the county executive, he got run out. Because the deficit and debt went up, the cash reserves plummeted, the bond rating went down, and the sewer fund ended up owing tens of billions of dollars to the general fund. He forgot to mention all that out. He's actually lost 3 consecutive races for 3 different offices, and he's trying to get your vote once again.
So before I go to Mr. Giuliani, Mr. Astorino, do you want to respond? 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think I do. To say that you didn't vote for the Cuomo budgets is
true.
It's incomprehensible.
But it's true.
Look it up, folks, because the executive, which I was, has to give the budget, and then the legislature votes on that budget, which he did. So every year he voted aye when Cuomo said, this is what you're going to do. The problem that we've been facing in New York is we've had the establishment, the status quo, the get-along, go-along crowd, like Lee Zeldin in Albany when he was in the state Senate majority, but every time he was a reliable vote for Andrew Cuomo.
There'll be plenty of time to get further into this, guys.
15 seconds.
15 seconds to Lee.
Okay, so when they tried that last week, these guys ended up getting fact-checked by Politico. They did the research, and Politico found that out of 63 New York State senators, there were only 2 state senators who voted against Andrew Cuomo more than I did.
All right.
Out of 63 state senators, only 2 voted against him more than I did.
All right, let's bring it to Mr. Giuliani.
Okay, let's talk about the issues that are important to New Yorkers, like the fact, like you mentioned, inflation through the roof. Look, I have a baby girl, my baby Grace, 6 months old, and I am concerned with the baby formula shortage. When I think about New York state budget at $220 billion, and I compare Florida's state budget as $98 billion, it's no reason why we lead the country in out-migration. We need to make sure that we work on day one to take the same type of regulatory action in the state of New York that President Donald Trump took in the United States of America. You guys remember when he said for every regulation he'd sign into law, he would cut 2? Well, that's what we're going to do in New York. By the way, when he walked out of the White House, that number was over 8 to 1, and that's why we saw record unemployment. That's what we're going to do in New York. We're going to absolutely make sure we tap into the Marcellus Shale and make sure we can actually make New York the best fracking state in the country again. And we are going to eliminate property taxes for New Yorkers over the age of 65 making $100,000 or less. We need to make sure that we reignite the flame that is New York.
All right.